Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I am very excited to bring to you Victoria Mensch. And let me tell you about Victoria. She is your expert in burned out proof leadership. She is passionate about helping high achievers like you find balance between success and well-being. Her mission is to guide you in creating sustainable growth without sacrificing personal fulfillment. She invites you to team up to transform you and lead and live, making balance and joy a part of your everyday hustle. So we're going to talk about achieving success without compromising happiness. Excellent topic to talk about today. Please welcome my guest, Victoria Mensch. Victoria, so nice to have you.
Thank you so much, Vicki. I'm really happy to be here.
So we always start out with two easy questions. The first one is, please tell everybody, where do you live? Where do you call home?
Well, right now, San Francisco Bay Area is my home. Oakland, to be exact.
Oh, I have been there many times. Awesome. So I gave just a brief information about where you really are today, what you do today, but I love for you always to share about your journey that really led you to where you are today, so that people see that the road is not always straight, that there are some curves and twists and turns in achieving really what you have accomplished today. So please share a little bit about your story.
Absolutely. Well, I started as a psychologist, actually. So out of high school, I really wanted to be a psychologist. I got a degree in psychology. I got a PhD in psychology, and I started working as a psychologist, counseling people. And that lasted about a year. I woke up one morning and said, I really cannot take one more day of this. I thought that I was following my passion, but I made a mistake. It's not my passion. So now, when I look back, I know that that was my first encounter with a burnout. So I really did not know how to deal with that, with the overwhelm, with setting boundaries, and so on and so forth. So what I did, and what a lot of people do when they experience this kind of condition, I decided that it's a job. I made a mistake. That's not my passion. So I changed careers. I pivoted into the corporate world. And then 3 years later, what do you think? I found myself in the same situation, right? So quite a few of those cycles went through until, yeah, I realized that it's really my relationship with myself and the mindset, my internal changes and the practices that I need to establish, so that I would actually have more of this sustainable feel and state of harmony between that career and everything else in my life. So that's my story. I spent more than 25 years in a high tech in Silicon Valley, in all kinds of companies, in large global corporations and startups, in boutique consulting companies. I still have a few of those that I am consulting, and I founded my own company, Silicon Valley Executive Academy, really on the shoulders of my experience with dealing with the burnout.
Yeah. And I think that happens to a lot of us where, we just go through life and we try things and we learn from the failures that we have. but it also brings to light, I don't want other people to have to go through these things. So how can I help them? And that servant leader comes out in us.
Exactly. It's more about acceleration of that, right? So I made those mistakes. I lived through them. I learned the lessons. Why don't I
Yeah.
share these lessons with others so they can choose whether to learn on my mistakes or make their own, which is also a wonderful way to experience life, right?
Yeah, and I think sometimes as coaches, it's not for us to sometimes um, have you eliminate or avoid those mistakes, but be there for when they happen to be reassuring that it's okay, you're going to make it. What did you learn from this? How can you grow from this?
Exactly, exactly. That's a very good way to put this. And I also, again, think of this more of acceleration. So
Yeah.
a lot of people, going through this, they would probably come to the same conclusions and they would develop their own practices and their own tools of how to
Mm,
deal with the burnout, with the challenges, with the career, with the growth in the career and the personal development. And obviously, having those resources from other people who are willing to share that, I think that's more of an
yeah.
acceleration kind of support.
So we sometimes feel drained and exhausted despite our professional success. And, it's almost, especially, for those young people out there, you go, go, go. You have all this high metabolism, all this energy, and you have these goals that you think you have to achieve,
Hmm.
but you don't always recognize that burnout is happening. So please provide some actionable strategies to combat that burnout that's really inevitable if you have that fast-paced lifestyle, to still be able to maintain high performance, but maybe lessen the amount of burnout you get.
Hmm. Well, I believe there are two levels. The way I usually talk about the burnout, I think there are two levels of support that's available to us for the burnout. And the first one is what I call the first aid. And that's more of a physiological mechanism, how you switch from your um, flight, fight or flight mode into a rest and digest mode. And I always talk about um, that our survival mechanism, that fight or flight mechanism, is a wonderful, wonderful way to keep us safe. And that's how we survive.
Yeah.
It's very important to have that. But it's really a kind of a pre-verbal mechanism and system from the evolutionary perspective. So you
Mm.
cannot just tell to yourself, well, just forget about this, get on with your life, right? So we'll calm
Yeah.
down. That system doesn't understand it. So it's almost like learning a language, how that system understands what we say. And that language of understanding is really made up of three components. One is the breath, right? So the
Yeah.
way we breathe, we provide that bridge between the mind and the body that tells us that we are in a safe environment, in a safe situation. So breathing is one of those techniques that is worthy to invest a little bit of time. It's really
Mhm.
a little bit of time and master as a stress management technique. The second one is visualization, right? So that's the system that understands images. So when we sit down and we imagine ourselves in a serene place, in a very safe place, in an environment for a couple of minutes, that sends the signal to our fight or flight mode to calm down and say, well, we're safe now. You can step back. All other systems can come on board, not just this,
Wow.
mobilization of that one survival mechanism. And the third one is really action, right? So you actually take something, some muscular response. It could be you clench and relax your muscles. It could be a brisk walk, and that sends a system. So it's kind of managing and learning a new language. And it's not only for people in burnout. We're just living in the
Mhm.
environment like this. It's very fast paced. There's lots of disruptions that are going on, technological disruptions, climate disruptions, political disruptions, I don't know, traffic disruptions. There's always uncertainty out there. So
Yeah.
these things are going to happen, and just managing that reaction and being able to have these tools, these basic foundational tools, of switching between that survival mode and really more sustainable rest and digest mode, I think that's a worthy investment of time and effort for everyone.
Mm.
Does
So
that make
how
sense, Vicki?
it does, it does. And I love
Mm-hmm.
that you talked about stress management in everyday leadership, because that's really what it is. It's not eliminating stress because it's
Mm-hmm.
there. It is there, and you don't control it, obviously, in terms of it hitting you, but how do you manage it, I think is really
Mm-hmm.
important. And
Right.
the breathing techniques is just really a great piece of advice for people. So how
Right.
do
So,
we
and mhm.
go ahead? Go ahead.
Yes. So, and that's the first level, the first aid. When anxiety comes up and the frustration comes up and anger comes up and overwhelm and whatever
Yes.
it is that, right, whatever it is that you experience as that uncomfortable feeling. So it's good to have this toolbox of just managing that immediate reaction and being able to calm down. And for sustainable changes, there are other practices that and tools that are available out there that help you to really take control of your own mindset. One
Mm,
of the elements that a lot of people talk about when they feel that they are in a burnout is that life is just getting out of control. Like, I'm not
yeah.
controlling my life, I'm not controlling my choices. I'm not controlling my time, right? So I feel out of control. So a lot of that is, how do I bring that control back to me so that I am
Yeah.
in the driving seat and not everything else that's coming at me? And they're very kind of practical, interesting methods and techniques that we can
Wow.
offer for that. And a lot of those is really around mm, making changes that put you in that control. So in
Mm,
this situation, right? So what is it that I can control? When you're a lot of stress could come from a fear of losing a job, for example. It's probably not a lot of it you can control. There are some economic forces, and the companies go through, the rounds of layoffs and so on and so forth. So that's something you cannot control. What you can control is your internal state, right? So you can control your level of energy, you can control your level of boundaries, you can control your level of time. So that's
yeah.
something that we talk about when we talk about, burnout proof leadership strategies. So one of those is gratitude, for example. I think that's a very
Mm,
powerful
yes.
technique, right? So, and it's what when at the end of the day, what it is, and it's very simple. It's training yourself to pay attention to things you like instead of things you don't like,
Mhm.
right? So, how do you notice those first before you notice the negativity? So, in a work environment, for example, when you go to a water cooler and you start talking to your colleagues, a lot of times it's just complaining, complaining, complaining,
Yeah.
a lot of negativity, right? So can you imagine they did this? Can you imagine they sent me this? So it's all about all those things that are putting us in a state of negativity, and training yourself to put yourself in a state of gratitude for things that you like, things that actually worked out that you enjoyed. So that's a
Mm.
powerful practice that helps you to keep in that much more powerful and much more energy full mindset and state. Mhm.
So how do you ensure that your priorities are clear and they are aligned with your purpose?
That's a very good question, Vicki. So one of the things I think that contribute in burnout and that feeling of overwhelm is that we tend to identify ourselves with a job. So I am my job, and that's all I am. So everything that's happening in the job goes
Mm,
exactly against or toward myself of my sense of identity. Right.
mm,
But the fact of the matter is that we are this multidimensional, multi-passionate, multifaceted human beings. So when you talk about the state of well-being, the state of flourishing, there are many elements that come to that. The job is one of those. In job, it could be a source of financial stability, which is important for flourishing. It could be a source of the purpose and mission in life that you really
Yeah.
feel that you support others. That's the way for you to serve. Or it may not be. It could be just financial stability. It's really individual for people. There are other areas like your relationships with your with your loved ones, with your community, with your colleagues. That's a big element of that well-being as well. Vitality, right? Your sense of vitality and health. That's a big element of really feeling that sense of flourishing instead of just going through through rounds of routine that is not energizing you. So it's important to understand that and really make decisions out of that. So one of the things that I really like to talk about is self-care. So for me,
Yeah.
self-care is really not about going and getting massages. For me, self-care is about prioritizing joy. And you want to be very
Yeah.
intentional about that as well. So we tend to dismiss this that, well, it's not part of what we need to do. If it's not hard to get, then it's not worth it. But that's not that, right? So that's very important, a switch in the mindset, because that's how you put your energy back into yourself. That's how you fill your cup. So you figure out what it is that bring you happiness. It's
Yeah.
it's an exercise in self-exploration in a sense. And I often share this story that when I did this exercise for the first time, I was asked to put together 20 things that I like to do. Not because somebody asked me to, not because it's important, not because it will bring return on investment, not because it's healthy, but the only reason for these things to be on the list is because they bring me joy and happiness.
Mm.
And it was a very difficult exercise. I challenge everyone who listens to go through that. I stopped at number 3. It took me 2 weeks to complete. I could not remember. Yeah, so I was in this state when I could not remember what it is that I like. So I remembered what I had to do. I remembered what I was asked to do. I remembered, what goals I need to achieve for my family and for my work and for my career. I just did not remember what I liked. And
Wow.
I had to ask myself, like, what did I like when I was 7 years old? What did I like before I got this job? What did I like before I had family? So it was very interesting. And that's the way is really to reclaim yourself because we're going through routines and around through all the obligations and responsibilities that somebody told us what we need to do. And we really forget about ourselves. But as a leader, as a high achiever, to stay productive, it's very important to really prioritize that. It's an important element and a lot of people really underestimate how easy it is at the end. It is not easy to give yourself permission, but once you do that, once you prioritize yourself and you start actually putting it as a practice, how easy it is to do and how unbelievably effective it is. People start
Mm.
mirroring you. So they see that you're full of energy, that you're full of vitality, that you're full of life, that you're really full of joy, and they mirror you and they accommodate those changes in you as well because they see that it makes you happy and everyone wants you to be happy.
Yeah. And as you were talking about that, I think a lot of times people forget about the fact that just the simple things bring you joy. It doesn't have to be something big, audacious, complicated, but to take joy in just the simple things, that a cool breeze blowing through your hair or just the sunset or sunrise, just simple things. For me, when the first time my grandson ran across the room saying Oma brought me so much joy. It was just a simple thing, that he was so excited to see his grandmother. Um, I think just people forget about that. We get
Hmm.
so expecting, that it has to be some glorious thing. And no, it
Hmm.
doesn't. It doesn't really.
Yeah.
What are
And it's just
some,
being there and being present for that moment, right? And register that moment and remember it. Isn't it wonderful?
yeah, yeah. What are some proven methods for harmonizing our professional ambitions with the demands of our personal life?
hmm Well, that's why I really like to talk about harmony. I know a lot of people talk
Yeah.
about balance. So every time we say balance, it looks like if I add something here, then I
Yes.
subtract something from there, right? So, but as we were talking about, this is really kind of this mm, a play, a joy, and a dance of this, all components in your life, right? So you have some core components that I want to create the life of joy and harmony. So you have that as your North Star. And then one day it can look this way, and another day it can look the other way, right? So it's important to be, again, in the driver's seat and being able to put those priorities and not get into the fear into the fear of losing something, fear of not fulfilling obligations. So, um, knowing your value is very important. So that's where we start
Mm,
talking about the boundaries, right? So in these boundaries, like you want to set these boundaries from the place of knowing what value you bring to your work and what value you bring to your family. So it's very important for prioritization. What are the things that only you can do? What are the
mm,
things that only you can contribute? And what are the things you actually want to contribute that bring you joy? So, and you prioritize those. And from a corporate point of view, from a professional point of view, you actually articulate those, right? So, and make sure that all people around you know that value and how you bring that value. And from that place, you
yeah.
can really start managing your time much more effectively.
And you talk about it like a dance. I always, even whenever I teach public speaking, I talk about how aligned music is to speaking, but also just as you were talking about having that harmony, because to be a great song, to be memorable, you have those low, quiet moments. You have those where everything's going very, very fast. You have those times where everything is high and, all energy, and it all becomes beautiful. And I think in life, that's the way it is. We will have those low moments so that we can appreciate the high ones, and we will slow down and be refreshed just so that we can speed up and get things done. And so I love that you combine it with dance, because to me, music and dance go together. So, so beautiful.
That is
Sometimes
beautiful.
sometimes we feel unmotivated for a lacking purpose, despite the fact that we've achieved a success. So I just talked about reigniting. So how do we reignite our passion, be able to find meaning in our leadership role and lead not only to fulfill others, but to fulfill ourselves?
hmm I'm actually amazed that we're even having these conversations of how important this conversation is and how much demand for this conversation is nowadays. If you look at, 10, 20 years ago, right? So
Yeah,
it wasn't on top of everybody's list. Your
no,
well-being, the well-being of people who work for you wasn't on top of everybody's list.
that's right.
So I think it's important to understand that the way we work, the way we manage our lives and the lives of people who depend on us is changing dramatically. And now,
Yes,
even with the technology like artificial intelligence, it's changing even more because more and more we're going to outsource all those routine tasks. They're going to be automated. So, what we're going to face, from a leadership perspective, we're going to face people, face to face. We're going to have to understand the motivation. We're going to have to understand the emotions. We're going to
yes,
have to develop trust, not the control, because people who are going to work for us are going to be are going to be less and less prone to being controlled. So I just want to really put this into a larger context of how amazing that we're having these conversations, and how they're not this woo-woo stuff that, used to be way out there on the outskirts of kind of, almost like a spiritual development. No, this is a necessity. It's really a necessity to go deep into ourselves as leaders, understand what our motivation is, what makes us see how we reinvigorate ourselves and reignite ourselves, so that we can be those role models for people who are following us, that, so who are helping us to achieve those goals. So just a little bit, all of a sudden it's like, well, I really want to talk about this because it's amazing
Yeah.
that
So needed today.
exactly. So and that purpose really comes from so many different things. We were talking about the different components that get into the flourishing, right? So it's important as a leader to go into the self-exploration and start asking why, right? So what is your why? Why do I want this? Why do I want this? Why do I want this? And you continue down and down that spiral until it actually speaks truth. Like, oh, that's why. So all of everything, I want this new car, not because I want to show off, right? So not because somebody told me. That why do I need that, right? So and you go into something that's real and true and authentic, and then everything else, all the noise really starts quieting down. So the decisions that you make out of that place of authenticity and your true purpose are going to be much more energizing, much more true, and it's going to take actually much less energy too
That
to
is
go
right.
that way.
So time is flying by, but how can we create life uh, where we succeed at work without being overwhelmed by its demands? We talked a lot about this already, but I think it's really important to, because we've got 5 generations of people out there working. We have people, my age in the 60s still working. We have, people in their 50s or 40s, all the way to the younger generation, and they all do things differently. So to
Mhm.
communicate to these different people in a way that they will each understand is a challenge. How do you help people be able to create that life where we succeed
Mhm.
at work?
Yes. So I think that it's important to take responsibility. So we
Mhm.
start with that always. It's important to take responsibility. So everything where I am, what's happening to me, what's going to happen to me, what happened to me is my responsibility to some extent, right? So, and it's important to take that responsibility and say, I'm in control. If I'm responsible for this, what it means that I am in control. What are those things that I can control? My state of mind is what I can control. My
Mhm.
decisions is what I can control. My choices is what I can control. So I think from that place of responsibility, you actually have a lot of power to create a life that you love. Right? So what is that life that I want to be? What is it that I want to be? What is that harmony? How does that look to me? And my harmony is going to look differently than your harmony. And then you put it as a North Star and you take responsibility for that path.
I love that. Taking responsibility. And that kind of goes back to what we were talking about, where it used to be, you just did what you were told kind of thing. And you could, if things didn't work out, you would say, well, I did what you told me,
Mm-hmm.
and not using our own brains. And so I think that is really important for people today, that we need to be accountable. We need to take responsibility. We need to own our destiny and our success.
I agree, yes. And that's important, even on the language perspective, right? So when you say, well, I have to do something, it's important to catch that and say, no, I get to do something, or even better, I choose to do that, right?
Yeah.
So from
Yeah.
that space, you take ownership for this action. It's not like somebody told you. But it's a very courageous place to be, right? So it does take courage that, oh, okay, well, it's actually my responsibility, nobody else's. No one else to blame.
Yeah. And I always talk about, my podcast is Finding Your Leadership Confidence. And I always talk about the fact that really courage leads you to confidence. And so when you do own that, when you do take responsibility, it does give you that confidence to know I did this. I was the one that controlled what happened. And it does eliminate some of that fear of failure. Even if you did it and it didn't go right, what did you learn from it? And you have the courage to try it again, to do it a little differently, to see if there's a different outcome.
That's beautiful. Yes, I agree with you, Vicki.
Well, if you all have enjoyed this conversation and would like to continue it with Victoria, then I'm going to share my screen as I always do. Again, if you're just listening, you know the drill. You should have been taking notes all along, but if not, go grab a pen and paper. But as always, you can find everything in my show notes on my Vicki Noethling YouTube channel, or you can go to my findyourleadership.com to get the show notes. So the website that you would want to go to connect with Victoria is SV, like Sam Vicki, Executive Academy, executive.academy. So that's SV executive.academy. On LinkedIn, you can just find her by her name, search Victoria Mensch. Again, Victoria Mensch for LinkedIn. I'm going to turn it over to Victoria. She's going to talk to you about our call to action. Things you'll find whenever you go to the website, svexecutive.academy, or when you check out her LinkedIn page, so you can DM her with your questions or comments about this podcast. So again, I'm going to turn it over to Victoria now to talk with you.
Thank you, Vicki. Yes, so my main channel is really a LinkedIn channel. I'm there every day. I'm responding personally to all comments, all DMs, and I put a lot of information on what we were just talking about, some tools, some practices, some observation, what's going on in leadership practices. So welcome to check it out. And there's also a way to reach out to me. So if you want to continue this discussion, you're welcome to do that. I'll be happy to do that. So, and in the academy, we have quite a few resources there as well, including the programs for corporate audience, for companies and entrepreneurs and founders who want to make sure that within their company, well-being is being prioritized so that you could increase that productivity, you could increase the loyalty to the company, and people have a way to fulfill their full potential within the corporate environment. So I welcome any comments and any suggestions. Please reach out and connect.
Awesome. So Victoria, it's so nice to talk to another Victoria, and you gave some wonderful advice about achieving success without compromising our happiness. Again, thank you for being a wonderful guest today.
Thank you very much, Vicki.
As always, I remind everyone that life is a journey, but it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling, signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.